Alright guys, I welcome you once again to the Tech with Gabriel channel. So this is our very first lesson of our SPSS tutorial. So this tutorial is actually from beginner to advanced. And so this is the very first lesson, and in this lesson I'm going to be teaching you I'm going to be showing you around the SPSS, right? Around the SPSS interface. So by the end of this particular lesson, you should be able to be familiar with the SPSS interfaces. Okay, so when you first open the SPSS, this is what you see. I've already imported my data here, but then when you open it, you will see an empty workbook like this. So it's just like an Excel, right? So you see these rows and columns, like empty rows and columns, and what you will do is you will just import your data. So how can you import your data? You just go to the files here, come to import data, and then go to Excel, or you choose your file format, right? So let's say if your file is an Excel file, you just choose your Excel, right? And then we also have comma separated variables as well, but most of the times the data that we collect are in Excel format. So after you click on it, this particular window will open for you to give you access to your computer folders and files. So you will have to, before you open SPSS, you will have to save the Excel or the data set somewhere you can remember, right? So when you open this, it gives you access to the folders and files on your computer. Then you choose the folder where you save your Excel file. So let's say I saved it directly on my desktop. I didn't save it in any folder. So I'll just click on desktop, and then I will locate the file directly here. So this is my file, store sales project. Now when you click on the file like this, you just come to open, and your data set will be opened for you in SPSS. I've already loaded the data or imported the data, so I don't want to import this one again. Right, so that is how simple and how easy it is to import your data into SPSS. All right, so when you import the data, you first see this particular view, and this is the data view. There are basically three views in SPSS. We have the data view, which is what you are seeing right now, which tells you or gives you information about your data. So it just lets you display or let you see your data set. So here we can see that we have some variables here, which are 7 variables, right? You can also view the variables, number of variables here. So we have 7 variables. Okay, and then we have the variable names here as well. We have the number of rows, so you can see everything in this data view. And then we have one other view which is very important, which is the variable view. And what the variable view does is it just gives you the attributes or the characteristics of your data. It describes your data, right? So it gives you the various options or attributes of your data. So it's very important to understand the variable view, and every row, every column here gives you or tells you about the characteristics or an attribute of the variables in the data view. All right, and I said we have we have 3 views. So the other view is the output view. Now the output view is the view that will display your analysis result for you. So normally when you open SPSS, you don't normally see the output view. It is only when you perform an analysis, which is when you see the variable view. But because we haven't performed any analysis yet, we can't get access to the variable view, to the output view, sorry. So that it is. All right, so I'm just going to show you around this variable view what everything here means, right? So I will start with the name. So this name here actually tells you the name of the variable, the name of the variable in the data view. So it gives you all the names. So here we have model, symbol, price, engine, power, fuel, and speed, and that is the exact thing we have in the data view, right? So that it is. And we have some rules in naming a variable. You see, most of the times we import the data into SPSS and everything will be like created for us, but sometimes you have to create the data manually in SPSS, and in creating them, you give every variable a name, and there are some rules in giving a variable or in naming a variable. Now, the number one rule is a variable name shouldn't start with a number or a special character. So, for example, this model, if I decide to add 1 here, it will tell me that the variable name contains an illegal first character. You see? Okay. So, and then if I also try to add, let's say, a special character like end, it will also give me the same information. The number two rule is it shouldn't contain space. The variable names shouldn't contain any spaces. So, for example, if I decide to add a space here and then write anything here, it will still give me that my variable contains an illegal character. Right now, this is very necessary. These rules are very necessary because along the course, as we proceed, we will be creating new variables from our data set, right? And it will require for us to know all the rules, because if you violate the rules, the variables will be created for you. So it's very important to know these rules. And the third rule is the variable shouldn't contain more than 64 characters. So the maximum number of characters a variable can contain is 64. So that is also very necessary. Now, when it comes to the type here, the type is actually telling you what type of variable or the type of variable that variable name falls into, right? So we have something like strings, and then numerics, we have date type, so they are basically data types. And if you check the data view here, the model here, this is a string, right? This is not a number, this is a string. So all the rows under the model variable are strings, so the type is string. The same applies to what symbol is string. But when you check price like this, price is numeric, right? It's numeric. And engine too is numeric. Now, in a situation where maybe you imported the data and SPSS gave you a wrong type, you should change the type to the correct one, right? And you can change it by just clicking on the three dots here. So the three dots in the cell, the three horizontal dots like this, when you click on it, you see all the types, right? So for example, if maybe the type of the symbol was date, like it were to be a date, and the SPSS mistakenly chose or gave you string, you should change it back to date. It's very necessary, but most of the times SPSS gets it right, but still you should go through it to find out if it's the right type. All right, and then we have width. Now this width actually gives you the number of characters in that particular variable, the number of characters. So for example, let's take something like the model. All right, the width is the maximum number of characters, right? The maximum number of characters the variable column can contain. The maximum number of characters the variable column can contain. So if you take something like model, the maximum number of characters the model variable column can contain is what? Is 90. So that means every character here, or yeah, so every number of characters here is no more than 90, right? The moment you exceed the 90, it will just trim back to 90. So let's say if for this fourth module LX, the number of characters here were to be 95, you wouldn't see the additional 5. You only see up to 90 characters. Yes, so for example, let's also take the symbol here. The maximum number of characters for the symbol here is 24, and we have the number of characters here to be 3. I think most of them is 3. So let's try and change it to 2. Let's try and change this one to 2, and let's see what will happen. Now we've changed it to 2. When you go to the data view, you see everything is now 2, right? You don't see the third character because you've defined the width to have 2 characters. Yeah, so let me go back and you should see your 3 characters again. So it's very necessary. All right, and then we have decimals. Now this decimals gives you the number of decimal places. I'm not going to talk more about it because you know. right? So the number of decimal places. And then we have label here. Label is also a way of naming your variable, but then the difference here is the rules or the restrictions that govern the naming of variables doesn't apply here, right? So here you can leave a space in the naming. You can start with one, like you can do whatever you want with the name. So this is very important because sometimes you would want to give a, a certain kind of or a particular description to your variable, and because you can't do that in the variable name here, you can do that in the label. So for example, if you check this one, you say model name. You cannot write the model name here. You cannot write model in the leave space and then you write name at the variable naming column. No, you can't do that here because it violates the rules. So model symbol, and you see this price. So the label here is price in dollars. So this is actually like further describing the name of the variable, and it doesn't follow any rule, right? I will leave the values and the values and missing column for our next lesson, which I'm going to be teaching you, right? I don't want to load you guys, so I don't want to confuse you, so I will leave these two columns for our next lesson. Now this columns here is also the column width of the variables. So this width you see here is so this width, you see this is having a wide, like the width is wider than the symbol, like the model column here, the width is wider than the symbol. So this is actually telling you the how wide the columns are. So we have 23 for this, we have 8 for the symbol and all the other variables. And then we have alignment. So align is just left and then right alignment, right? And by default, um, all strings are aligned to left. So if you check this, the string variables are aligned to left, and all numeric variables are also aligned to the right side. So by default, that is how it is. And then we also have measure. So these are the level of measures, and it's very important in statistics. So in statistics, basically we have 4 levels of measurement. We have the nominal, the ordinal, the ratio, and then the scale. Now I'm not going to talk more on this. I don't want our video to be long, and so I'm going to create a new video explaining these measures: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. It's very necessary, it's very important, and better still, you can also find out, you can also go and learn more about it, right? But I will just say a little about like what they are, right? So a variable like model is a string variable and it's nominal, right? Nominal is actually you giving a name. So and a nominal variable or a nominal measure actually tells you or categorize a variable. It categorizes a variable in without an order. Do you get it? So it just gives you a name, or it groups the variable into a certain number of partitions, or it will partition the variables into a certain number of groups, right? So for example, something like gender is a nominal variable because you cannot order gender. You cannot say females are better than males or males are better than females. So something like gender, we have males and females, right? They are nominal variables. And then we have one level or one measure known as the ordinal. Now ordinal are actually the variable that can be ordered, right? So as I'm saying, this is just a brief introduction to it. Just go and learn more on it. And I also make a video on that, explaining it in details. So ordinal actually gives you actually tells you a variable which can be ordered. For example, household income of families can be ordered. Some family can have more household income than the other. And level of education, you can have GHS, SHS, tertiary, right? You can order them. And then we have the ratio and interval, right? So in SPSS, we have only 3 measures. Right? We have only 3 measures. We have the scale, ordinal, and nominal. But in statistics, basically, we have 4. But in SPSS, it combines the ratio and interval to form a scale, like to form this scale. So anytime you see a scale, it's either a ratio measure or a ratio level or an interval level, right? So that is how SPSS is. So please go and learn more on the level of measurement. It's very necessary and we will need it in our subsequent videos. This row here is not that important, so we can leave it. All right. And we have these, when we come to the menu bar, we have these options here. So we have file, and I am not going to go through them like one after the other. As we proceed with this course, we will be taking them, and by the end of the course we will know what majority of them does, right? We have edit here, we have view the data, we have data view here, sorry, we have the data, we have transform here, we have analyze. So this is where we use to perform every analysis in SPSS. So every type of analysis is found at the analyze tab here. We have the graphs, which is where you can use to build your charts and everything. We have utilities, extensions, and a whole lot. And then we have these symbols too as here. Don't worry about these tabs. As we proceed with the course or as we proceed with the tutorials, you will be able to understand them, know what each of them does. All right, so I would like to end our first lesson here. So I believe you've learned something, and please, I will urge you to like read more on the level of measurements. Like is very key to me. So the measurement here, please read more on it. I'll also do a video on it, as I said. All right, so that is everything you need to know about the SPSS interfaces. In our next video, I'm going to be teaching you how to prepare your data. So data preparation will be our next lesson. All right, so guys, thank you very much. So, and I'm still urging you guys that if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe so that any video that we post, you get a notification for you to, so that you don't miss any video that we post, right? And also like the video, and you can also share to your friends as well. All right, so thank you very much for your time, and see you in the next lesson.